It is time to breathe again on the latest Breath of Fresh Air webcast with your host, Charles Taylor. So, I am by myself for this one because Patrick Brackett and his wife had some dinner plans that I guess or I guess Patrick forgot about. So, it's all right. Patrick will be back next week. He let me know this afternoon that he wasn't going to be able to make it. So, it's okay. And he'll be back next week. So, with that, guess let's get on with the college football review. And as you guys know, we pick out 5 games from one from each Power 5 conference to look at, preview, and pick the score for it. So we'll get to the slide and the updated standings for that in a moment. But let's review some of the games that happened last week. So 3 victories stood out to me. One was Oregon beating UCLA 45-30. Bo Nix looked very good in that game. Of course, he transferred to Oregon from Auburn, and he is putting up some good numbers. Had 5 touchdowns in that game. Patrick and I did have Oregon winning that game. More on that in a minute. But that was a victory that stood out. Another victory that stood out was LSU. Now, I will talk more specifically about them in a little bit, but I don't know if anybody saw them beating Ole Miss like they did down there in Death Valley in Baton Rouge, 45-20. I mean, 45-20, and they outscored them 42-3 after Ole Miss had a 17-3 lead. So very impressive victory by LSU. And the last victory that really stood out was TCU. TCU just continues to come on back from these deficits. That game against Kansas State was a game of runs. You had TCU jump out to a 10-0 lead, and then Kansas State, or actually, they jumped out at first. It was 7-0. I know Kansas State had a 28-10 lead, and it looked like TCU couldn't stop them at all. But after that, TCU's defense kind of locked down. Kansas State's quarterback play kind of suffered. Adrian Martinez, he was injured in the first series of the game. And then Will Howard, who came in, was playing really good, but then he got hurt. But be as it may, TCU was still scoring, and none of those quarterbacks played defense. So they have an explosive offense over in Fort Worth. You know, that's down the road from where I'm at, in between Dallas and Fort Worth. And they just find a way. They hang in there, they come back, and they were able to do the same in this game. So they won that one 38-28, and they are looking up. Everything's out in front of them. They are right there with victories over Kansas State, over Oklahoma State the week before, and they have the inside track, number 1 seed there in the Big 12 when it comes to the conference championship game. Of course, in the Big 12, it's the first 2 teams in the standings who will end up playing each other in Arlington in the Big 12 championship. So those games stood out. We picked Alabama to win over Mississippi State. Nice bounce back win for Alabama over Mississippi State. After coming off of the loss from the loss to Tennessee. And Clemson, that was another win against Syracuse. Syracuse, they hung in there and they just couldn't quite pull it out at the end. They had a 21-10 lead, but Clemson was able to come back in the fourth quarter and get that victory. So Clemson is still undefeated in the ACC, and that will pretty much do it for the review portion. Well, after we go through some of the records here, or our records for both of us in the games that we have picked. So before we do get to the preview, let's look at that slide. And what you see is both of us went 4-1. So going down the line, in the Pac-12, we previewed the UCLA Oregon game. Oregon won that. We got that one right. And then in the Big Ten, it was the Minnesota-Penn State game. We both picked Penn State. Got that one right. The Big 12, that was the one we missed. That was the Texas-Oklahoma State game. really hurtful for me. Can we please stop saying Texas is back? Because Texas is not back yet, and I don't know when they will return. As long as they keep blowing these 14-point leads, they will never be back. But they blew that lead against Oklahoma State up in Stillwater, and Oklahoma State won that game 41-34. That was the one game we missed for the week. The other two games, I mentioned the Syracuse-Clemson game. We both had Clemson winning. A tough game for Clemson, but they were able to pull it out. And then the Mississippi State-Alabama game was the one that we had previewed for the SEC, and Alabama won that one going away 30-6. So you see the records. Both of us were 4-1, and Patrick still has the one-game lead on the overall for the season. See if we can change that with these games that I'm going to pick out for this week. So with that being said, let's get to the preview. And starting in the Pac-12, this one was kind of tough because the Pac-12 didn't really have games that stood out. Let's see, you have USC, Arizona. You have Stanford and UCLA. And Oregon is at California. Have to watch out for those games, of course, because they could be trap games, especially for Oregon. After the big win over UCLA, they could go down to California and slip up there, so they have to be careful. So the game I'm going to look at is the Utah at Washington State game. That is actually a Thursday nighter up there in Pullman, Washington State's campus. So, Washington State, they can hang in there. They can play kind of tough. They gave Oregon a lot of problems before Oregon was able to pull that game out. And they played USC tough as well before USC was able to pull that out. Utah, I think they had a bye week coming off of the win they had over USC. So I think this will be tougher than it looks for Utah, but I still think they will be able to pull that game out when all is said and done. So I'll go 31-24. Utah wins that game. Or actually, no. Yeah, that's right. 31-24. I was thinking, should I have Utah win by a little bit more? But no, I'm going to stick with the original score. I say 31-24. Washington State, it's a tough place to play at up there. I think Utah, with the team and the leadership they have, and also coming off of the bye week, they should be all right to win that one on a Thursday night. So that's the Pac-12 game. Let's go over to the Big Ten. And rank-wise, huge game. It will be Ohio State and Penn State playing in Happy Valley. Now, Ohio State, I know they're ranked number 2 in the nation. They haven't played anybody. I mean, Notre Dame isn't that good this year. And who else have they played? They played Michigan State. Michigan State's a mess. Iowa, they can't score on anybody. They're a hot mess. And now here they are playing Penn State. Penn State is better than those teams that I have mentioned. How much better? I'm not really sure because Penn State, I mean, they had a nice solid win over Minnesota, but the week before they got hammered, housed, destroyed in Michigan, 41-17. So I don't know how good Penn State is, and I'm really leaning on the side of they're really not that good at all. But playing at Happy Valley, that crowd will be hyped up, and Penn State will be hyped up. I think they'll be able to hang in there for a half or so, but I just don't know how much Penn State is going to score when they play against the good competition. They struggle. James Franklin gets ultra conservative in these games, just like what I pointed out 2 weeks ago when they were about to play Michigan. They just don't play well in the bigger games. But I think they'll be hyped up here. And again, I don't think Ohio State is all that good myself. I know they're ranked high. I know they have guys. They have C.J. Stroud, who's a Heisman Trophy candidate. The receiver, he's been in and out of the lineup. Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's been in and out. But Ohio State does have a lot of weapons there, and their defense looks like they're playing a little bit better as well. So I have them beating Penn State probably something like, we'll go 35-20. Penn State will hang in there in the first half, but I really don't see them sticking with Ohio State and keeping Ohio State down for the duration of the game. Maybe they can get it into the fourth quarter, have a chance to maybe pull it out. I just don't see it. Just think it's too much Ohio State in this game. 35-20 is that's what I have in favor of the Buckeyes. Let's go on down to the Big 12, or come on down to the Big 12. And the game that sticks out here is Oklahoma State and Kansas State. So, big game here. Both teams have one loss in conference, both losing to TCU. And the winner of this game will have the inside track on that second spot to play in the Big 12 championship game against, it's looking like it will be TCU. I think this game will be really, really close. They are playing in Manhattan, in the Little Apple, as they call it, up in Manhattan, Kansas. So that's a place to play as well, going up to Kansas State. I mentioned Oklahoma State and the win they had against Texas last week. They struggled on offense, but they started to get the running game going, and they were able to hit some big passing plays. So Oklahoma State, they will play solid, and they have a good quarterback, playmaking quarterback in Spencer Sanders, delivering the ball to the other playmakers on that team. Kansas State, we mentioned their quarterback situation. No word yet. No word yet on Adrian Martinez on whether or not he will play. It looks like Will Howard, their backup, will be good to play as well. He looked pretty good against TCU. So I was going back and forth with this one. I think with the game being in Kansas State, I'm going to pick Kansas State to win this one. We'll give this score 34-31. It could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised to see Oklahoma State win the game themselves. Like I said, Oklahoma State has a good, solid team there, but I'm going to pick Kansas State to win this one, 34-31, if they can get the quarterback play to be consistent, or at least consistent to where they can stay healthy. That's my game in the Big 12. In the ACC, it was the same story that I saw in the Pac-12. Not a lot of games in there. I mean, you have Wake Forest at Louisville, Virginia Tech's playing NC State, Notre Dame comes to Syracuse. Be interesting to see how Syracuse responds coming off a loss to Clemson. And Clemson has a bye week, I believe, for this week. So the game I'm going to go with here is Pittsburgh at North Carolina. Pittsburgh, of course, they haven't had the best of seasons. They are the defending, or they were coming into the season as the defending ACC champions, but they've been struggling. They're at 4-3. They're playing North Carolina, who is 6-1, and they have the one loss to Notre Dame. The game is in Chapel Hill, down in North Carolina, and I think North Carolina has enough. Now, Pittsburgh will play tough. They will be able to, I think they can come up with a good game plan to slow down the offense North Carolina has. North Carolina has been playing a little bit better defense as well. So I don't, this one's tough. I think I'm going to go 27-21 in favor of North Carolina. It could be higher scoring because the defenses, although they've been playing a little bit better, they can give up some big plays. But I think North Carolina will have enough to hang in there and still have that inside track in the coastal part of the ACC. And so right now it's looking like it'd be them and Clemson playing in Charlotte for the ACC championship game if everything holds out the way it has been leading up to this point. So I have North Carolina winning this one 27-21. Finally, in the SEC, let's see. I know Patrick will be very, very excited about the Georgia-Florida game. We will always call it the world's largest outdoor cocktail party because that's what it's been called. We know it's the Florida-Georgia game or the Georgia-Florida game, so depending on what side that you're on. Georgia should win that one, but that's why they play the games. We'll see. You have, let's see, Alabama and LSU. They're both on a bye week, and they will play each other on November 5th. But the game that sticks out is Kentucky at Tennessee. So, Kentucky, they have 2 losses in the conference. They lost to Ole Miss and they lost to South Carolina. South Carolina was able to come there to Lexington and beat them. South Carolina, now they're in the top 25. So South Carolina is starting to surprise some people, maybe starting to turn some things around under Shane Beamer. Tennessee, we know they're coming off of a win against, well, the last game they played was against Tennessee Martin. But of course, they beat Alabama 52-49, and they're looking to keep that momentum going. And this is a dangerous game for Tennessee. Kentucky can play some defense. We'll see what they can do against Hendon Hooker and that offense. With the game being in Knoxville, I don't know if Kentucky has enough defense to slow Tennessee down. So I'm going to go Tennessee winning that game 38-28 is what I'm looking at with that game. With it being in Knoxville, Tennessee with those weapons rolling like they are, I don't know if Kentucky can do enough. Kentucky's chance will be to have the ball control offense, run the football, keep Tennessee's offense off the field. That's going to be hard to do because Tennessee's been playing a little bit better defense themselves. So if everything goes according to plan this week, you have a huge game coming up the week after with Tennessee going down to Athens to play Georgia. So a lot still at stake here. But I think Tennessee will not look ahead. They will keep everything in front of them and find a way to get this win over Kentucky. So those are the 5 games to run it down in the Pac-12. It was Utah, Washington State. I have Utah winning. In the Big Ten, Ohio State and Penn State, I have Ohio State winning. In the Big 12, it is Oklahoma State and Kansas State. I have Kansas State winning. In the ACC, it was Pittsburgh and North Carolina. Got North Carolina winning. And Tennessee beating Kentucky in the SEC game of the week. I will make sure I get Patrick's picks for these games, and then I'll update those standings according to how he picks them and how we do ultimately. And we'll see if we can get one of these exact scores right as well. Before we move on to the NFL, I wanted to talk a little bit about LSU. I mentioned they destroyed Ole Miss 45-20 last week in Baton Rouge. And what you have with LSU right now is this is a team right now, and I'm not trying to make any predictions here in terms of what they're going to do big picture, but they have everything out there in front of them. I know it looked messy with Ryan Kelly coaching the team, with him not being real, trying to have this Southern accent, even though you're from Massachusetts, so you don't have any type of Southern accent. Just go out there and coach. And if you coach and you start winning games, you will get into that culture down there in Louisiana. You just have to stay true to yourself. Don't be fake about it. But it looks like, from what we saw last week against the Rebels, that the team is starting to buy into what he's doing, what he is selling. And if they play like that, LSU, they can play with anybody. They have the talent there. It's never been a problem with talent there in Baton Rouge. It's just a matter of, can they get the coach in there to be consistently there, and you're not changing coaches every few years. So it looks like everything is starting to turn around. I'm not going to say they're there yet, but they do have everything in front of them. With this victory over Ole Miss, they are tied with Ole Miss and Alabama. Well, in terms of the losses, they each have one loss within the conference. Remember, LSU's other loss, besides the one that they had in conference to Tennessee, came to Florida State in the first week of the season, non-conference loss. So as long as they take care of their business, you could be seeing LSU in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. They have Alabama coming down to Baton Rouge in a couple of weeks. And as long as they take care of all that business, they will be there. So as messy as it looked at the beginning of the season, as undisciplined as LSU looked, as just at some points hopeless as LSU has looked, They are putting it together. They're getting some guys healthy. Jaden Daniels is playing good in the quarterback position. The defense is looking aggressive, and LSU might shock some people. We will keep an eye on that. Again, they have Alabama coming in 2 weeks. They have a bye this week, so we will see what November brings. But I have to say LSU, because I mean I thought they would be right where Texas A&M is right now, honestly, at 3-4, but they have everything out there in front of them. So we'll see how everything materializes. But give Brian Kelly credit. He is coaching well. Looks like he's getting the players to buy in, and it's never been a problem with Brian Kelly's coaching. I think a lot of us know he can coach. He can get the most out of that talent. It's just a matter of, can he finish the deal? We know, being down in LSU, this is the biggest talent pool he has to choose from the places he has been. He has been in Cincinnati, and obviously he was in Notre Dame before taking the job in LSU. But I mean, it looks like maybe he's just getting rid of all that mess, not worried about all that mess in terms of trying to fit in. He's just coming in there and coaching. We'll see if it leads to anything, but right now LSU has everything in front of them, so we'll see. Let's move on to the NFL, and we have some games here. Let's go to the review part and look at some of these games. Obviously everybody is talking about how bad the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers look, and it's because of the quarterbacks who are on that team. You know, Tom Brady's on the Buccaneers, Aaron Rodgers is on the Packers, and the teams look lifeless. And the big debate has been which team can turn things around, which teams can, or which one of the teams can right the ship, I guess. Look, me personally, I'm going to say I'm going to go with Tampa Bay any day of the week, just because they do have Tom Brady. But there's a chance they might not. And the same can be said with Green Bay. Now, normally I will say, hey, don't worry about it. They have those two quarterbacks. So with those two quarterbacks being on the team, you always have a shot. And I still primarily feel that way. But am I the most confident? Am I more confident back then when I said that comment than I am now when I say it? Yes, I am. Because, and it's not necessarily because of those guys. The teams just don't look like they're playing well around them. And also, this NFL season has been crazy. I mean, besides the Bills, who are 5-1 right now, and then the Philadelphia Eagles are running at 6-0. And I mean, the Minnesota Vikings are 5-1. This is a crazy, crazy season right now, and we're almost halfway through. So it's getting to the point where you can't just say, it's early. We'll see how things go, and then we'll rise to the cream of the crop. We're almost into November now. So it's getting to the point where the teams who are playing pretty well, they might be able to keep this up. And it's been a crazy season as it is. Look, the Seattle Seahawks right now are first place in the NFC West. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody had Seattle being in first place in the NFC West at this point of the season. They are above the 49ers, the Rams, and the Cardinals right now. So give Seattle credit. Pete Carroll has them playing up there in Seattle, and they have a big game with the New York Giants coming up on Sunday. More on that in a minute. But Seattle's in first place. The Atlanta, the Falcons, even though they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, they're tied with the Bucks for first place in the NFC South. Carolina, who it looks like they're trying to just trade everybody out for the season, they actually whooped the Bucks, destroyed them 21-3 on Sunday in Charlotte. So they're right there, and if they're able to beat the Falcons on Sunday's game, they'll be right there in first place, which is crazy. Assuming Tampa Bay loses to the Baltimore Ravens coming up on Thursday night. But it just tells you how crazy the season is right now. Oh, and another thing I'm sure nobody had, the NFC East right now is the best division in football. Remember when everybody was talking about the AFC West and how great that division was going to be because you had all these quarterbacks in there. You had Patrick Mahomes, you had Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr in there. Look, the AFC West, well, look, Kansas City right now, they're holding up their end of the bargain. They destroyed my 49ers over the week. But everybody else, I mean, the Chargers, they're not good, and they're starting to get beaten up with injuries. But even if they didn't have those injuries, I didn't think the Chargers were going to be that good anyway. The Broncos look like they're a mess. And then the Raiders, we'll see if they can get it together, if they can put something together. But right now, the AFC West isn't nearly what people said that division would be going into the season. Now, of course, if you go back to the show that we did, the NFL preview, I had the Chiefs and Raiders going to the playoffs from there. I didn't have the Chargers and Broncos going in there. So I wasn't really that sold on the division like everybody else was. But now everybody else, I guess, is saying, oh my gosh, this division isn't as good as we thought. But the NFC East, though, apparently best division in football. You got the Eagles, which, like I mentioned, is 6-0. The Giants are 6-1. The Cowboys are 5-2. Blah. I don't see that really continuing. But as it stands right now, they have a 5-2 record. And the Washington Commanders, they're 3-4 right now. They won their last 2 games. They beat the Chicago Bears on a Sunday night, and we saw what the Bears did to the New England Patriots on Monday night. So maybe that win was a little bit better, and they beat the aforementioned Green Bay Packers. So Jets continue to roll on through. The Miami Dolphins were able to hold off the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tua Tagovailoa returned to the field. Good to see him out there. And from what I saw, it didn't look like he was holding back either. He was over here trying to run over dudes and everything. So look, I can't say I wasn't a little bit worried seeing him trying to run over people. But to see him out there competing, playing, and just continuing his career, that's a great sign, and I'm glad to see him back. And hopefully he, along with all the rest of the players, can stay healthy and continue to perform at a high level. So that is the review of last week's schedule. So getting to the preview, I mentioned the Ravens and the Buccaneers. They're playing on Sunday night. So Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, on Thursday night. So Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are going to get it together. They have a short turnaround to do so. We'll see what happens there. You have, I mentioned the Panthers and Falcons. You have the Cardinals and the Vikings playing. Minnesota coming off the bye week, and they'll be at home for the Cardinals. The Bears and Cowboys could be interesting. I know a lot of people like Dallas in this game, but the Bears can beat the Cowboys. They have a defense that can get pressure on Dak Prescott. And if they can win, if they can get some offense going and just be more consistent than the Lions were the other day, they can beat Dallas. I will continue to say this. If anybody else but the Detroit Lions were playing the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday, the Cowboys would have lost. But the Lions they just can't get out of their own way. And so let's see. You have the Raiders and the Saints, and you have the Niners and Rams. That's the Sunday afternoon game of the week on Fox. The Giants and Seahawks. I think that will be a good one. That will be interesting to see if the Giants can keep this going. They're a surprise team in Seattle. They're a surprise team. So it's the battle of surprise teams playing out in Seattle. That should be a good one. The Packers go to Buffalo on Sunday night to play the Bills. So some definitely some interesting games here. Nothing huge in terms of must-see TV, but the way the season has been going, everything is weird. It's really weird. So it will be an entertaining Sunday. There will be some things that happen. A lot of us will not expect to happen. And you have a lot of teams in the middle of the pack anyway. So it's not like anybody is standing out. I know the records. I know the Bills have a good record. I know the Eagles have a good record. The Vikings have a good record. Other than that, everybody else is just kind of bunched up there in the middle. So As usual, I'll be right there on Sunday, ready to watch, ready to see what happens. And again, let's prepare for another wild Sunday. Um, Specifically, let's talk about some of these quarterback situations. Again, I know everybody is talking about Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and whether or not they can get it together. Look, I'm not really worried about them too much. I think they will get some sort of stability going before the season is out. Tampa Bay, again, they're in the NFC South, so they're as bad as they are. They're still in first place in the division. So I expect Tampa Bay, they'll be okay. Green Bay, on the other hand, they have Minnesota in the division with that 5-1 record. The Packers are already sitting at 3-4 with the game in Buffalo coming up. So I think they will get it together, but how good they'll be this season, I'm not really sure. I don't know if I would have them making a legit run in the playoffs this year. I don't know. I think I would say Tampa Bay will do that before Green Bay. Green Bay looks like they're having a little bit of issue with leadership, because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the best leader. He could play, he has a lot of talent, but he's going to have to bring those receivers up to speed with how he wants things done. And if you are that guy, if you are that dude, the two-time or the winning the MVP the last couple of years, then you have to be able to elevate the team. Right now, he's not doing that. And Tom Brady's not elevating the Buccaneers either. But again, I'll put my money on Tampa Bay. But the situations I wanted to talk to about, the quarterback situations I wanted to talk about, was the first one was the Indianapolis Colts. So they are benching Matt Ryan and starting Sam Ehlinger apparently for the rest of the season. Now, the Colts have had a revolving door at quarterback since Andrew Luck retired. Now, if you have a guy like Andrew Luck retiring, of course, that is going to set your franchise back for years to come. You had this guy, you had him there since 2012, and he, especially the last few years before he retired, he was hurt a lot. Whether it was concussions, the shoulder injury, he just decided he had enough. Ever since then, you've had Phillip Rivers there, you had Carson Wentz there, and now Matt Ryan is there, and you're benching him for Sam Ehlinger. I don't know what people were expecting from the Colts, because I know a lot of people felt like this roster was a Super Bowl caliber roster. I never saw that with the Colts. I think they have some good players, of course, and they've been injured. Their linebacker, Shaquille Leonard, he hasn't been in the lineup. He's been injured. Jonathan Taylor just came back. Their great running back, he just came back last Sunday against the Titans. And then they have some other good pieces on defense. Stephon Gilmore's a good corner, but I'm looking at that roster and I don't see Super Bowl ready on that roster. But they figured if they get the quarterback there, that could put them over the top. I never saw that in any of those guys that got it. Phillip Rivers, no. Carson Wentz, no. And Matt Ryan, no. I know he went to a Super Bowl, but he's on the downside of his career. And I think what you have to look at, if you are the owner, Jim Irsay, is what is the management doing? What exactly are they doing on the field? And particularly the head coach, Frank Reich, because I will continue to say this until my last days. When you have a situation of you just needing a win to get into the playoffs, and you show up like the Colts did that last game of the regular season last year in Jacksonville, that is not a player problem. Okay, it is because the players are playing, and I get that part. But the coaching staff obviously did not have that team ready to play. And that is happening far too many times with Frank Reich being the coach. So I think Frank Reich probably needs to go. I think he is on his last days there. He's been there for 4 years. I know he got the job because he was the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles under Doug Peterson. And they won that Super Bowl with Nick Foles taking over for Carson Wentz. But I'm not seeing where Frank Wright is such a good coach. I think he doesn't have the best clock management, and I think the Colts roster, why I don't think it's a Super Bowl caliber roster, I do believe you can do some things with that roster if they get the right type of coaching. And I don't think he is providing that for them. So I think changing the quarterbacks, to me, going from Matt Ryan to Sam Ehlinger, I don't think that's going to make anyone any difference. And look, Sam Ehlinger, he's a Texas guy. He went to the University of Texas, so you know I'm all about it. Hook 'em horns, all that. But I don't think he's the big difference maker the Colts need in order to turn their season around. Now, as it is, they're not out of it. I mean, Tennessee is in first place in the division, but because the Titans have swept the Colts already this year, you can throw another game onto that. So in essence, they have a 2-game lead on them, maybe a 3-game lead on them, because even if they do tie, the Titans have the tiebreaker. So the Colts, they can still, because of the way the season is going, they can still make the playoffs. They can still do something before the season is out, but I'm just not seeing it, and I don't think Sam Ehlinger is that guy. The other interesting situation is what the New England Patriots did. So, of course, they got blasted by the Chicago Bears at home on Monday night, 33-14. But they started Mac Jones. And to me, I think they probably should have kept Bailey Zappi in the lineup. They had started to play well with him in the lineup, and I get it. Mac Jones, he's been injured. But I don't think that gap between Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi is as big as the gap between Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush, for an example. When Cooper Rush, you know, he's kind of the guy who's going to manage the game. And you expect Dak Prescott, or at least Cowboys are paying him like this, to be able to be a difference maker. Again, I don't see Dak Prescott like that, but I think that gap between him and Cooper Rush is bigger than what you would have for someone like Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. So, with that being said, if you were playing good with Bailey Zappi, you should have kept him in the lineup. Now, I know the head coach, Bill Belichick, said at a press conference at the end of the game or after the game, they were going to play both quarterbacks at some point during the game on Monday night. If you were going to do that, all right, I understand, because you want to see what you can do with both guys, and maybe that's kind of an addition to see who could take that starting job, and you roll with them during the season or for the whole season. But I would have just started Bailey Zappi and see what happens from there. If he continues to play good, then you keep him in there, and Mac Jones is just going to have to work his way through in some other way. A lot of people think it's a QB controversy. I really don't think it should be much of a controversy. If you're going to have Mac Jones in there, then stay with Mac Jones. If you're going to stick with Bailey Zappi, then you stick with Bailey Zappi. Personally, I would have just stuck with Zappi and just let the chips fall where they may. Again, a lot of people were talking about the Patriots roster. I heard it on the radio and on television. People talking about the Patriots roster. You can win with that roster there. They have a good roster there. Not saying it's a top 10 or top 5 roster, but you can win with that roster, and you have the Belichick coaching. So the Patriots are going to be around simply because there's no one running away with anything in the NFL. Now, you do understand they are in the same division as the Bills. They weren't going to beat the Buffalo Bills anyway. The Buffalo Bills were going to be the winner of that division, and it's proven like it's going to be that way as we sit here right now. So I didn't have them beating the Bills, but I did have the Patriots as one of the playoff teams this year, along with the Raiders and Bengals for the wild cards. Of course, my division winners were the Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, the Tennessee Titans, and the Kansas City Chiefs. I did have those teams there. And if you don't believe me, just go back and check out the NFL preview. But I did have the Patriots making the playoffs in some way, shape, or form, getting one of those wild cards. They're still in the running for that because, again, nobody's running away with anything. So a few wins here and there, they're right there. And it's a crazy year. It would surprise me to see a host of teams uh, get into the playoffs and potentially make a run to the Super Bowl. So those quarterback situations in New England and Indianapolis, I mean, I don't think it's really that big of a deal. Like I said, with the Colts, I mean, Matt Ryan wasn't going to do anything for you anyway. He's had a very good career with the Atlanta Falcons, and I think the way they brought him into Indianapolis, they looked at him like he was going to be the savior. Matt Ryan is not that guy. He's not the dude who's going to put you over the top. I mean, if you have a good team around him, maybe potentially, but I thought the Colts were supposed to have that good team. Now you're over here benching him for Sam Ellinger. And then the Patriots situation, they'll be fine. Let's let Bill Belichick deal with it, and then he'll run what he runs with, and then we'll see from there. Finally, we have some baseball to talk about because the World Series will start on Saturday. The Philadelphia Phillies, by knocking out the San Diego Padres 4-1 in the National League Championship Series, they will be going against the Houston Astros, who swept the New York Yankees out of the American League Championship Series. The Astros haven't lost a game in this postseason. Of course, they swept the Seattle Mariners in the divisional series as well. So you have two teams playing hot, getting hot at the right time. Well, the Astros have been hot the whole time. They won 106 games this year. So the Astros have been playing good ball all the way through. But it looked like they're really hitting their stride now, and the same with the Phillies. Look, this has been a great story for the Phillies. They were one of those teams who got that 6th spot. Of course, with Major League Baseball going to a more, I guess, updated playoff system where it goes from 10 teams to 12 teams, the Phillies was that third and final team to get the wild card spot. So, of course, the third ranked team was the last division winner, and in the National League, the Dodgers and the Braves were your teams that got the bye. The Phillies were the last team in, but they went through the Central Division winning St. Louis Cardinals, and they beat the Atlanta Braves in 4 games. And then in the championship series, they were able to beat the the Padres. Nobody thought that was going to happen, but again, the Phillies, they're playing good. Their pitching is good. You have Bryce Harper, who won the National League, who won the series MVP there, going opposite field. And, you've heard Patrick and me say, if he's able to go opposite field, you're going to see a lot of points added to that average. So, and also, don't tell me you can't go opposite field if the shift is playing against you. It's a simple adjustment. That's why I never understood why people were so upset about the shift. To me, that's dumb and stupid. I don't understand why that opinion is out there. That's just me. Because again, they're professional hitters. They can make adjustments. That's what they're supposed to do. They're professional hitters. But that's another rant for another day. Very good story for the Phillies, but I just think the Houston Astros have too much for them. And also, Patrick has that prediction as well. So we both have the Houston Astros winning in 6 games. I just think Houston's pitching is a little bit deeper than what Philly is bringing, and the lineups kind of cancel each other out. I just think they have the better team, the more complete team, and I just think it's time for Houston to get back to that World Series championship. And it will be good to see Dusty Baker get his first ring as a manager as well. And if Houston does finish this deal, which Patrick and I think they will, the whole thing with the cheating, the sign stealing stuff, what are you going to say now? For the people who want to continue to throw that out and say, oh my gosh, they're cheaters, they're cheaters, they're cheaters. Look, so that happened in 2017. Let's go down the line. 2018, they were in the American League Championship Series. 2019, they lost the World Series in 7 games to the Washington Nationals. The shortened season, they went to 7 games with the Tampa Bay Rays before going out to them in the American League Championship Series. And last year, 2021, they lost to the Braves in the World Series. So it's not like the team went down because of the cheating scandal. They're still playing good ball. they're still right there in the running as a perennial favorite to win the World Series. And I think that's probably why a lot of people were upset, because we know the talent that Astros have. So why would they have to do something like sign steal? So I understand where people are upset about that. But if they're able to work their way back after all this time and win the World Series after that, at some point, just like with the Patriots, when everybody was talking about these crazy scandals, Deflategate, Spygate, and all that, at some point you have to acknowledge there's skill there, and the players can actually play. You don't continue to get into these situations by just cheating. That's not. It's really not possible. Really, it's impossible. There is some skill there, and the Astros continue to be right there in the running, and I think they're going to finish the deal this time. So, with that being said, that will conclude this edition of the Breath of Fresh Air webcast. Y'all make sure y'all go to the Breath of Fresh Air YouTube channel, smash that subscribe button, and keep the lights coming on the Breath of Fresh Air Facebook page. I hope everybody enjoys the games coming up this weekend. Oh, and I guess we won't be back before Halloween happens. Halloween is next Monday night. So everybody have a happy and safe Halloween. Enjoy the candy, enjoy the trick-or-treating, all the traditions that come with Halloween, and continue to enjoy the games. We have all 4 leagues going right now, so a lot of sports out there to talk about, a lot of games to cover, and the Breath of Fresh Air webcast will be right there covering the games with y'all, being fans, watching everything go down, and then we'll be right back here to talk about it. So everybody take care. Y'all have a great rest of the week, and we will talk soon.